Donald Trump just warned everyone about an EV bloodbath that could destroy the middle class. He's bringing back gas cars, going against Biden to expose his lies, and fighting for the rights of the common man. The Biden administration has lied to you about EVs, hiding the fact that most of the EVs are being built in China. Workers are being fired, people are dying due to EVs catching fire, and the whole market is crashing. But the government only wants you to see the good side. But Trump just did something that shocked the entire nation. So here's the scoop. Trump was at a rally in Ohio, doing his thing, talking about cars, China, and what's going to happen if he doesn't win the next election. He mentioned putting tariffs on cars made in China, saying it straight to China's leader, like, listen up, if you think you can build cars in Mexico and not hire Americans, and then sell those cars back to us, think again. If I'm back in charge, I'm slapping a 100% tariff on those cars. And if I don't win, the entire auto industry is soon going to crash. Then Trump popped off in Detroit, dropping a bombshell that got the EV crowd and the big EV makers sweating. He's calling out EVs for being too expensive and not living up to the hype. And guess who's on the chopping block? Yep, Biden and his push for electric cars. Trump said, America doesn't need only EVs. EVs are going to put automakers out of business. All EVs are going to be made in China, and this is just a big hoax. The auto industry's been betting big on EVs, pouring over $100 billion into making cars that are supposed to be cleaner for the planet. But Trump, he's not buying it. He thinks electric cars will cause a huge bloodbath, and the middle class will have to pay the price. And here's where it gets juicy. The Biden administration is dangling carrots in front of consumers, trying to turbocharge EV sales with all sorts of incentives. But if Trump gets his way, he's planning to yank those carrots right out, throwing a wrench in the works for automakers' grand plans. He wants to change 3 big things that might help gas car owners and stop the EV push altogether, but more on that in a minute. Then, the headlines started popping up everywhere, painting a picture like Trump was predicting doom and gloom of biblical proportions if he didn't win. We're talking about major outlets like NBC, CBS, and Rolling Stone, all saying Trump's talking about a bloodbath if he loses, but not clarifying he was specifically referring to the automotive industry getting hit hard. Trump thinks EVs are secretly hurting our nation in 3 ways. First up, let's talk about jobs. You've probably heard folks buzzing about how electric cars are the future, right? They're cleaner, greener, and quieter. But there's a twist. Making EVs doesn't need as many hands on deck as making their gas-guzzling cousins. This shift is causing a real stir because, in Europe alone, there are about 13 million people whose bread and butter comes from the auto sector. That's a lot of folks who might be wondering what's next for them. Now imagine you're one of those workers, clocking in every day at a plant that makes parts for traditional cars. Along comes a new wave of electric vehicles that doesn't need your parts anymore. What happens to your job? In the US, around 350,000 workers are going to lose their jobs within the next 5 years. Ford and other big names in cars have already had to say goodbye to thousands of workers as they steer towards this electric future. If you've been watching so far, be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with the latest in the car industry. Now, let's dive deeper. The next big issue is China's inside attack on the US that Biden is choosing to ignore. EVs rely heavily on something called lithium. It's like the secret sauce that powers EV batteries, making them go zoom without a drop of gasoline. But take a wild guess who's holding the largest slice of the lithium pie? China. China's not just sitting on a pile of lithium. It's mastered the art of turning it into the high-grade stuff that goes into batteries, not to mention it controls a big chunk of the global supply chain for these critical minerals, around 80%. And this isn't just about cars. America's whole military depends on minerals that China controls. And out of Biden and Trump, only Trump seems to be concerned about this at all. And get this, Trump is not just going after Chinese EV makers. He also wants bigger companies like Tesla to stop bullying legacy car makers that are new to making EVs. He'll get rid of the $7,500 tax credit that we currently get on buying an EV because he wants everyone to have a fair shot. Since companies like Tesla have most of their manufacturing in China, they can make EVs at scale. Companies like Ford, on the other hand, are fully managing things on American soil instead of siding with China, but this means their EVs are going to be slightly pricier. Trump also wants to give gas car companies another shot at business. Last year, General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford lost $8 billion combined due to making faulty EVs and later not being able to sell them. But despite the losses, their hybrids and gas cars seem to be selling much better. Gas cars are keeping their business alive, but Biden is constantly making it hard for us to buy gas cars by bringing new emissions laws that are absolutely unrealistic. Trump wants to level the playing field and give everyone an equal chance. He thinks if the tax credits are removed, companies will get rid of useless features from these high-end EVs and focus on making cars that are more practical and affordable, like the old times. Now, let me tell you about 3 big changes that Trump is going to bring and how it's going to affect you and the future of the car industry. First up, if you were looking to buy a Chinese car, like a BYD, then I have some bad news for you. Last month in Detroit, Trump vowed to slam a 100% tax on Chinese cars. This would mean that the same BYD Seal that's available for $50K right now will be sold for nearly double the price. But why is this being done, you ask? This is because China seems to be playing a dark game, where they make EV minerals costlier every day and raise the prices of our EVs and then enter our market and sell their own cars for cheap. And these Chinese cars are no good. We've seen all the news about these EVs catching fire and having loads of software issues. This will not only help them control our market, but also wipe out companies like Jeep and Buick that are about to go bankrupt due to poor sales. The next big change Trump is going to bring will be a boost to gas car production. In an era where all countries are banning gas cars, he thinks the US still has a long way to go before we go fully electric. For one, our charging infrastructure is completely lacking right now. According to Consumer Reports, we would need about 3.2 million EV chargers over the country to be able to function properly, and right now, we're not even close to 10% of that number. This means that while people in cities like California are able to live with EVs, those living in remote regions are struggling due to overcrowded charging lots. Trump went out and literally said, most EVs would end up needing a charge before you even reach the grocery store. And even if they don't, you'll be tired of paying the hefty repair bills. While some of his statements might seem far-fetched, he's not wrong about EVs being costly to repair. You can find plenty of people online who've had to pay hefty amounts, up to $45,000, just because their EVs got a scratch. But how can a company charge that much just for a scratch? The thing is, most EVs have their battery packs at the bottom, and if you end up scraping or damaging your car in any way, the whole unit will need to be replaced. This is why Trump is going to give way to American companies and encourage them to make more hybrids and gas cars like the Japanese. Last big change that Trump wants to bring is to let people choose what's best for them instead of trying to control the narrative. Back in Germany, the government has put a full ban on any gas cars after 2030. Keep in mind that this is the same country that's home to companies like BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. Trump thinks that people should still have a choice instead of worrying about what the government wants. All in all, this could be a big relief for folks like you and me who want simpler gas cars and more options to choose from. Biden has a totally opposite stance and still believes that Chinese EVs are good for people despite the market crash. But in Trump's view, this whole push for electric cars might end up costing a lot more folks their jobs, hand over even more power to China, and leave a lot of us regular folks scratching our heads, wondering why our car needs a charge after just a short drive. He's throwing down the gauntlet and ready to battle it out to keep gas cars roaring on the roads and to put the brakes on what he sees as an electric car takeover that could change everything we're used to. It's like he's the captain of the gas car team, waving the flag high and saying, let's not let these electric cars take over our roads without thinking about what it means for all of us. Do you think politicians should ban gas cars? Yes or no? I just uploaded a video about groundbreaking news that could hurt the entire EV industry. Do check it out if you want to be truly shocked by what's about to happen with EVs.